All right, hey there, Sam back with you here Tuesday, February 27th. We're midday, and again by popular request in the polling that we do as to which videos will get a video, or pardon me, which spreads, which coins will get a video review. The voting here today was for NEO to the dollar tether on Binance. Now, what's interesting about this coin is one of the very few cryptos where the majority of the trading is to the dollar, which is kind of surprises me. I mean, with the exception of Bitcoin, of course. But so here, NEO, clearly is a major player here. So we're pushing a market cap of $9 billion. And of course, all the metrics here are extremely high, 81 amongst the development community. I mean, this is one of the majors, and we come down here though. But this is interesting. The majority of the trading, as we can see here, is to the dollar tether on Binance. Number 2 is Binance to Bitcoin, but we're a little higher on to the dollar tether. Number 3 is Bitfinex, NEO to the dollar, and then Ethereum, and then again Bittrex here to the NEO to Bitcoin here on Bittrex. But look at all this trading to the dollar. It's just something to take note of. Somewhat surprises me, but there it is nonetheless. And you can see the bulk of the trading, and this wasn't always the case, but Binance now is becoming such a major force that more than 50% of the trading is on Binance. So, of course, let's go look at it on Binance. Now, again, it's to the dollar tether. So as we come here and look at it, we don't have as much history as we did on Bittrex or some of the other exchanges. But there it is, and we've got a good low to work with from this low back here in December, where we went into this 5-wave structure here, which we've corrected. So, I mean, pretty clear here to see that we've got a completed 5-wave structure. You might, have a different view as to the exactly how I have this labeled, but I certainly don't violate any Elliott rule set here. I think we get the extension in the 5th. 3, 4, up for the 5, we complete here. I think we can agree on that. And then we come down, we correct it in a nice big fat 3, right? So we trend in 5, we correct in 3. So if we just, as we would with any completed 5-wave structure, we're just going to pull from low to high. So just up, see what we get here. Well, so interesting, the first move down right into the golden zone. We can't get out of that impulsively. That would be a bit abrupt. Now, I should mention here, I'm on a 4-hour chart here. So what do we get? Well, we get just classic Elliott wave here. For the A wave is deep, interestingly here, this prior wave 1 here. Not that it's relevant here, but this is not uncommon for this prior resistance to provide a little support, at least in the neighborhood. Into the golden zone, boom, reaction out. Back to the 50, boom, reaction out. Well, it's not enough. It's, that's not enough correction for this entire move. So we get this nice juicy 3-wave, and you can see here we get, a 5-wave into the B. We get an A, B, C. So there's nice subdivision in the correction. Right where you would expect the extreme of a second, we come in here, and so we're almost to the tick at the 786. Just perfect technical trading. Boom, boom, down we go. And then, of course, you'd want to be checking that pivot to see if it was technical. Well, if I work from, that looks like a truncated 5th here. So we come down here from the length of the A wave projected up here. Now we get through the golden zone on the B, but a B wave is much like a second wave, and that it'll often push all the way to the 786. So we get in between the 65 and the 786. We come down, and what do we do? So if I take this off, so you see that's a perfect confluence zone. Here's the algo target. So now, as I've shown many times, you could look at that and say, well, wait a minute, Sam, I thought the algo's flipped if it breaks on the 65. Well, that's true that they do. And, for whatever reason, you can see the first trip up here, we go into the golden zone. So that the target doesn't change here. So into the golden zone here, algos are defending, and their target remains down here. Now, I can't explain it to you other than, for whatever reason, they stayed with that target. Now, you could look at it this way and say, okay, well, let's assume that they flipped, because that's, some of them did. I can promise you that. So here we look now. So if they flipped here, as I'm often telling you, well, what would they have done? Excuse me. They would have gone from the swing low, since we broke the 65, to the swing high. All right, here's the 50. It breaks again. Excuse me. So now they've been wrong twice. Well, what do they do next? Well, again, because there's no person sitting there going, oh, I don't know, man, I've been wrong 2 in a row. They'll act like a machine, because it is a machine. So they'll take the swing high to swing low. What do we get here? Here's the 50 to the tick. So eventually, which is why they make so much money, eventually they get it. Here's the 50 to the tick. Here's their target right here. And, you know, for whatever reason, some of them stayed with it here, or this was just still in play. So we get this nice fat zone down here where we get this confluence zone here, algo targets, boom, and look at the reaction. So what's the point of going back and looking through that? Well, of course, you know, no surprise, we've got algos are in here, and we can take some of this off, and we can look at that and go, as I will often tell you, that what we're trying to do is just tuck in behind them. We're just trying to use the Elliott wave to get in behind them because they dictate what the market's doing. So we are just trying to qualify this pivot and go, okay, well, if that's a good pivot because of that confluence zone of algo targets, and we've had this reaction, well, what's likely to happen next? Well, if we just work as we would with any of these, we're just working, we've got a technical pivot. What's the first thing we can see? If we go up here to this being our next pivot here, and look, we double top here, but it looks like this is slightly higher. What do we do next? Right to the 50. Right? Do you see that? So algos, algos, algos. It's just the same thing over and over, guys. Here's the front run on the 50. Here's their target. Reaction. Right now they get through it a little bit. Reaction, reaction, down we go. All right. Well, now, so if we look at that and go, okay, as Elliott wave traders, what are we trying to do? Well, could that be a 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe going up for a 5? Well, maybe we got to be careful about that, and that's where some of the nuance of Elliott wave can be helpful to us in trying to just get, as I will often say, get in, surf the wake of the algos. So what are they doing? Well, we know they've already bought the 50 and taken profit here and had a reaction. Well, is there an Elliott count that we can use in here that will be helpful to us? Well, first we got to figure out is what they're likely doing now. So since they've already hit a target, we got to go to our fib pull here. Let's get it hot. Working from the major low, because that's what they will do. We'll go to our most recent high here. And what do we got here? Well, you know, we're at the 38, so they don't get the 50 here. So maybe this is where some Elliott wave is helpful to us. So we can look here. So the other thing we would have to check, just got to check it here from this swing to this swing. Well, you get just a hair through the 65. You get just a hair through. Here's that target right here. You know, they still with it. You know, we come back here. We perfect little dab into the golden zone. Here's that target up here. Could be they're still with it, so you've got potentially a 1, 2, 3. That certainly looks like that if I go down to the hourly. Let's go to a 2 hour. We'll just keep it so we can keep some perspective here. Because it's not the prettiest looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but this looks corrective. So it's a little tricky in here. So let's look at what we might have from an Elliott perspective. So we're working on the assumption we've got a good technical low here. Well, we can get a 1 there. We can get an ABC into a 2 here. That's what how I would count it. Potentially a 3. This looks like a truncated C wave here. We see it in crypto all the time. So let's get that degree down a little lower. That's a bit much for where we are. All right, could that play as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Well, okay, so obviously we've overlapped the 1, so potentially here we have a diagonal, which would make sense coming off of this pivot here, this hard low that we know is technical. Could we have a leading diagonal here? Well, a few things we want to check. We want to check the length of the third wave here. So I'm going to use my alternate price projection tool and look at the length of the 1 projected from the proposed 2. We're not 100%. So that's, we got to be cautious about that. Again, third wave doesn't have to be the longest, just we don't want that to be the shortest. So in a diagonal, you know, this still could play here, although we'd be looking for some targets this way. We'd look for the 1 through the 3 projected from the 4. Looking for the 618 would be a common target up here. Right? Length of the entire 1 through 3 projected from the 4, so that's a contender. Then we'd want to look at the length of the 1 through the 3 from an algo pull. What do we get here? Well, we're shallow here. Remember, we're playing that as a 4, but look at the confluence here. So now I'm starting to get a zone up here that starts to make sense. It fits with both an algo pull, just straight algo pulls, even though it's shallow here, but we did have this. Remember, from the 2 to the 3, you know, you got to check it. So if that's playing as the 4, it could be that they just bought that there. That was defending, and now they've got a nice fat target up here with a good confluence zone that makes sense for us in terms of our Elliott count. So, you know, other things we could do. We could work a channel off of this. Come here. Channel on the 2 through the 4. You know, You know, I don't love it. I'd probably put a pitchfork on that as well. We know the modified shift and the pitchfork are going to be identical. So if I work that up to my 1, let's get that right on there. Yeah, we just missed there. You know, that's kind of, well, let's get it right on there. You know, that's the shift. So let's go over here, check modified shift. You know, too steep. Original, definitely too steep. So we stay with the shift here. So we're on the edge of it. So then I might look at it this way and go, anything here that's helpful to me. If I work off of, it looks like there's a pivot here. Now I'm going to go back to original. See if I've got any market geometry here that might be helpful to me. Okay, well that kind of gets my attention. So here, from this hard low, we're still in an Elliott context. We're playing that as, because of the structure here. I mean, it's the reason let me dig in there a little bit. The reason I think that's you know, this could be a 1-2 of a diagonal. You know, again, we see this so much in crypto and it throws you off a little bit. Let me get those right on there. It's not unlike what we saw in Bitcoin. So we could count this as a 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you could count it this way. Let's look at it here. So we could play this as, so there's 5 waves in here. So we could have a 1, 2, either 3 ABC. We'd have a funky third. I'd be inclined to go this way. So we get a 5 wave, which would imply an A wave. But then we get this very clear 3. So it strikes me that more likely what we've got here is an A and a B, and then that shallow C. That's get it right on there. That shallow C wave right into the golden zone. You know, is it ideal? No, it's not. It's not. You'd want that C wave to go deeper, but this is just something we see in crypto all the time. So we have to, you know, just look for it because we've seen it hundreds of times before. These shallow C waves. We just got it in Bitcoin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC, 1, 2. It sure looks to me like we're completing there in a 5 wave. So again, just kind of digging in here. Can I, again, kind of reverse engineer it? Looks like I might have a 3, a 4, and a 5 up here. Well, if that's coming out of that in a 5 wave, that adds credibility to these pivots with this count as that AB shallow C. You know, it's just the way the market is trading. So you got to roll with it. So we get 3, 4, 5. Are we done yet? Not necessarily. A couple of different ways this could play. That could be the 1 wave. We know we've got this target up here. So if I go now to a larger degree here to get this in context, we go up here. We'll change that color. So 3, 4 into a 5 wave. Are we done yet? You know, not necessarily. We could end up with something like this. We could get this 5th over here. We could have just more in that 3. A couple of different ways that could unfold, but either way, we're trying to get up to this hard target up here. We want a 4 to set us up for that 5. That's what we're trying to get because of the confluence zone on the larger degree and the higher time frame. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got this nice confluence zone here, and then look, we've got the median line coming into play. So you can see, even though I'm working from these pivots here off of the 2, get that right on there. Already, so here's the golden zone. Here's the golden corner pocket right here. So we get that 80% odds of getting there. Now we've already gotten there once. Now, do we bounce and go again? Well, as is often the case, the median line is acting as a magnet, so we might retrace here the lower parallel. Maybe that's where we get our 4, and then we bounce up one more time for that 5. If that's the case, where does that put us in the larger count? How does that help us? Well, if this is a 1, 2, and we're getting a leading diagonal into our 1 wave here, so there's a very clear, clean roadmap that would set that up. If that's a 1, 2, so then we'd be looking at it this way. Now I'm hypothetical here because I've got a target 2, 3, 4, 5 going up. Let's change the color and get up a degree. So could that be our roadmap? Well, it certainly potentially lays out rather nicely because if this is a 1, 2, well, we know our 3 is way, way, way up there. Way up there, right? So here would be the 3. So if we, as I've done here before, if I do it this way and I just go from my absolute low, come here, low to 1 high. All right, here's my 2. Well, here's my 3. We know that's going to be very close to the 1618. So here's just an eyeball target. Well, how can we get there? Well, we're going to subdivide along the way. We're not going to go straight up there. Well, here's that map starting to get firmed up and established. So we've had it's not the prettiest, but it's we've got a potential leading diagonal going into play here, so that would complete our one wave there. Then we'd have the setup for this to come down for a 2, down for the 2. Then we're trying to get the 3 of the 3. It could be the 3 of the 1. We don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of potentials upside here for Neo. But right now, for us going, okay, well, that's all fine and well, Sam. I'm glad to know that that potential is there. But how does that help me right now trying to find a trade in Neo if I'm either looking to get in or in one? Well, right here, if you're not in now, the next trade is to look for the 4 to the 5 to complete the 5th of the 1. I know it sounds it's hard to follow it when you verbalize it, but so you have to have the visual there to get a sense of it. Okay, so I've got potentially a leading diagonal looking to complete up here in a confluence zone that's right in line with my median line. That's a very reasonable path for this market to be taking. If we complete there, then we look for the 50%, between the 50 and the 618, to give us the second wave of what would be our third larger degree. Right, and I know it's a little confusing, and there's a lot on here. Let me try and clean this up here so you can get, before I finish up, so if we take all of this off, we know all those targets are here. So right now, as it relates to us now, trying to get into a trade here, not necessarily trying to hit it out of the park, although the potential for that is here, given the upside targets. Right now, can I get just this little trade here, from my 4 to my 5? Right, what's reasonable? So for me, a minimum would be 3 to 1. All right, so if I'm going to take this and I'm going to work from my 2 to my 3. Okay, so here would be my zone at the 38. You don't want to give it too much. So you've got to put the stop on the other side of the 50 to maintain a decent risk reward. If you get on the other side of the 65, right, which would be a reasonable thing to think, well, now you're at 2 to 1. It's not enough. So if you want to maintain a 3 to 1, which I would encourage you to consider to justify the risk, to have the reward there. So let me bring this down a hair. So there's 3.3 to 1. Your stop's got to be under the 50, you give it a little more. At least hold 3 to 1. There's 3 to 1 right there. So you're giving it a little juice. So you're looking for the front run on the 38, looking to complete the 5th here, based on how clean that technical pattern is setting up. And again, look, we're starting to boost here. We don't know for sure that the 3 is in here. This could be the 4. It could be there's more upside here. So these are high-class problems. We're just trying to get on board here because eventually there's likely to be a pivot up here made to complete that 5-wave structure, and then we wait for the correction. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, but it's certainly technical, and it's setting up to offer opportunity. So a little bit of a wait and see right now. I would not encourage somebody buying it right here to chase it. I mean, you're about to bump into the median line again. Just because it's there doesn't mean you couldn't get through it, right? I mean, it's certainly possible that this does not have to top there. We could be going up here. There's all sorts of scenarios here, but what we're trying to do is lay out a roadmap so that if we get it right, if we get, based on probabilities, what's likely to happen, what's most likely to happen. If we can set that up, then we have a trade here. Again, nothing says it must stop there, but there's a single. All right, take a little profit, tighten your stop because it could keep going. If you bank the entire trade, then you're looking for the reload on the 2 because you'd have a completed 5-wave structure. That's it, guys. It's the same thing every day, trying to set up the roadmap. Can you find an on-ramp? All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.